So, Miss Tiffany, thank you for joining us today. This is a little bit of an uncomfortable subject matter for me to talk about, but when I started asking folks about who can help me in this area, your name came up more than once. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, name of your company,
Sure.
and what you guys focus on?
So my name is Tiffani Robinson. My company's name is the Dragonfly Harbor. We are service providers. So I have a business partner. Her name is Jennifer Meir, and we have a nonprofit that serves victims of human trafficking. Um, Service providers is very vague for basically if a survivor of trafficking has a need, we try to meet that need. And if we can't, we are partnered with lots of other organizations and companies to try to get those needs met. So it
Okay.
could be like legal advocacy. It could be a bus ticket because you made the wrong decision and went back to a trafficker, or, anything. There's a very broad range. Rent assistance. We do lots of therapy, things
So,
like that.
from the therapy aspect of it,
hmm
I'm sure the victims of trafficking, the pain doesn't stop after they're removed from that environment.
Right, right.
So therapy's got to be a big part of this.
Absolutely.
So how'd you get involved in this? Give me some backstory on. You've got a lot of education behind you, so kind of give us a backstory how you got involved in this.
It's an interesting story. It's a God story. So, I was on the track to go to med school, and I started doing volunteer hours at the Baptist Children's Home in Monroe. And whenever I was working there, I just fell in love with like helping the kids, things like that. So I changed my major to get a master's in counseling. Then I got a job. And on my first day of that job, God was like, "You have to quit. This isn't what I have for you." And he led me to a different position at Methodist Children's Home.
How did you feel when you got that word that first day on the job?
Yeah.
You can't move forward with this.
Right, right. So I was embarrassed, but also I just felt like such a burden to do it. Like I have to do this. And I was like a baby Christian. I had just gotten saved in 2014. It's 2016, so I'm really just trying to like chase after God and what He has for me. So I ended up at the Methodist Children's Home.
Okay.
My very first day at Methodist Children's Home, my very first client walked into my office. We started talking for a little bit. She said, "Can I go to the restroom?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. I'm not going to tell a kid they can't go to the restroom." She's a 16-year-old female. And she runs away from the secure facility.
Mm.
And for about 3 days, she was gone. And at 72 hours, we have to discharge kids there. And she came back right before that. We had found her, or, local police found her. And our next session, she was just like, "I'm a survivor of trafficking, and you missed it all." And so from that point on, she literally taught me so much. And then, of course, I knew I had to get educated
Wow.
in that topic.
How did that hit you when she, just laid that out?
I, I mean, I
I
was
just
like
got
a puddle.
I got
Yeah.
chill bumps saying that. It's like our kids are so vulnerable. We think a 16-year-old should be able to take care of themselves, but we're still a kid at
hmm
that point. And for that kid to recognize that a professional that she thought should be trained in this missed something,
hmm
that had to hit hard.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It did. I was a puddle on the floor. I was like, if you're willing to talk, you're willing to share, I am listening.
Wow. So, um, how did that one case lead you into trying to specialize like you are now?
So more divine intervention where I met a lady named Casey. She was nominated to Governor John Bel Edwards' human trafficking board. And we became good friends. We worked together. And she was like, "Come with me. Come to all these board meetings. You can come as like a public citizen or what have you." And then I got on the board and things, went forward from there.
So before you got on the board or was exposed to that aspect of it, what was your knowledge base, or what was your, I guess, just overall knowledge of human trafficking? What did those words mean to you before you got exposed to it?
I had no idea. I didn't know it existed. I had never seen the movie Taken, which we can talk about is not a
Okay.
very realistic United States picture of
Sure.
human trafficking. But yeah, I didn't know it existed. And so luckily I was able to go to several trainings. This was 2016. So it was becoming more known. And so it was easy to go to trainings and to learn more. And at trainings, there are survivors who will testify or train and tell their stories, tell other stories, and really just give you good information and then how to treat.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not like a blueprint that, I mean, human trafficking can take on so many different aspects and forms.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So we can't just say that, I mean, black and white, this is or this isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But through my little bit of research that I've done, when you start looking at the different aspects of it, when you think hard enough, you may actually know somebody that you may have had in your past. Like, man, I wonder if.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if. So you got on the board. You're starting to learn more about it. So take me from there.
Okay. So also at this same job, I met Jennifer, my co-founder, and her first client, whenever she started, I think she started 4 years before me, was also a victim of human trafficking.
Wow.
And so we became really good friends. We began training together. She was actually my mentor for my job at Methodist Children's Home, which was not trafficking specific, but was a different road, but still in the same league. And so we just grew really close and began dreaming and having passions to serve this particular population. And we went from there. So in COVID 2020, God said, now's your chance. The world is shut down. Get busy. So we were able to fill out the paperwork, get our nonprofit going, and just kind of dream bigger and make bigger plans.
When you guys started the process of creating this nonprofit, did you have any idea of what the need was in our community? I mean, we've got the world to think about. We got United States, we got Louisiana,
Right.
but this affects us in our community.
Right.
I mean, it's here with us. Did you have any ideas of how bad it was in our community, or what the say? I'm not trying to elevate it to where Northeast Louisiana is just overrun with. It's not.
Right.
It's not that, but one case is bad enough.
Sure. Yeah.
But did you have any idea that it was something that we had to deal with, or that women had to deal with, and some men had to deal with in our community?
So I was not aware of how prevalent it was in Northeast Louisiana or even in Louisiana until I just started getting to know people, networking, et cetera. Jennifer and I knew that there was a need for trauma-informed therapy, trauma-informed care. And so those were our goals to start out with. We were very broad. There needs to be trauma-informed care because victims of any kind of abuse, if they're not believed when they tell their story,
right.
That's damaging. So that's kind of where we took the first step.
But isn't that part of the abuse? Their abusers tell them that nobody's going to believe
right.
you.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, that's just been pounded into them. So for them to come out and even share their story has got to be traumatic in itself, knowing that nobody's going to believe me, but I feel like I have to tell my story.
Right.
So how do you, well, before we get into that, walk me through some of the, tell me some of the things that surprised you when y'all started looking into it.
Okay. So we are based in Ruston, Louisiana. That's where our main office is. We have other offices around Louisiana because we serve the whole state. And it's in Monroe. It's in Ruston. Ruston is such a tiny little town, but it's there, Monroe is a bigger town or a bigger city, but it's here and it's multiple situations. And it's right under our noses, And so I'm thankful for this opportunity that we can spread awareness.
So when you made the comment that it's the movie Taken is not which is human trafficking, but it's not like what we see here. What do we see here? What does that look like here?
So here it's more along the lines of teenage or young adult females who are dating older men, older than them, not old, but like a 16-year-old with like a 22-year-old.
Okay.
Familial trafficking is huge, and you wouldn't think, but it is. I mean, familial trafficking is much more prominent than you could ever imagine. And I mean, it could be poverty, it could be addiction based, where mom has to sell her kid to get her needs met and things like that.
Are we talking selling the kid to someone else and they take the kid, or selling a kid on whatever they need at that time.
It could be an exchange of, you can have sex with my daughter if you give me the meth or heroin that I need.
Wow. How do they recover from that?
Intense therapy, love, support. Like I said, belief is the first thing. Someone saying, hey, I've been hurt. Okay, I believe you. No questions asked. You don't even have to tell me any more details. I believe you. What do you want to do about it? And then we can go from there. But yeah, just lots of love, lots of support. If you need to change the environment, that could be a big thing. But survivors have to feel safe. They have to feel safe in order to go to the next hierarchy of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? They need to feel safe. They need to have their basic needs met, and then they can start rebuilding or undoing in order to rebuild.
Right. So they have to address what they've gone through, talk through that, so they can start the foundation of the building blocks, so that they can start repairing themselves moving forward.
Right. And
Well,
that can be a long-term thing, because talking about it is like reliving it.
Sure. If we take it from the standpoint of the average Ouachita Parish family, that I don't know if there's even an average anymore when you start looking at the family makeup, but from a parent that's concerned that they want to make sure they're providing the best safety, but also providing the best opportunity for their kids that are out there, what are some of the warning signs that parents can start looking for that could affect their son or daughter at an early age? That's linked, because we hear the term grooming a lot, and give us a little bit of what, as parents, what can we do to equip ourselves? So for me as a parent, I know I keep
You're okay.
talking before you answer, just trying to express from a parent standpoint, or from my standpoint, we want to raise our kids in a way to where they have all the opportunity that life has to offer. We want to give them everything that we can, but not expose them to so much that they can harm themselves. My wife and I were talking the other day that we don't want to be helicopter parents, but we have a 10-year-old, and our 10-year-old, she gets to ride her bike to school to and from, but it's not that far from our house, and she could do it on her own. But today's world says, I want to watch her ride her bike to and from school, because I just, the world that we live in. But when I was her age, I was on my bike and I was riding like a mile away from the house and back, and hopping friends' houses. And it was just a different world that we're in right now. So knowing all of that, what can a parent do to protect their child or put some safeguards in place?
Okay, so I'll give you some red flags first.
Okay.
Cash. Why do you have so much cash? How are you getting your nails done? How are you getting your hair done? Tattoos, branding, social media is.
So let's back into the cash thing. So would you say that people are trying to basically buy influence with that kid with cash, with monetary things, doing things, making them feel good monetarily?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And also, if they just have a lot of cash and it's unexplainable, they can't tell you, like, oh, well, this is my allowance that I've saved up for 6 months. Things like that. Like, where did you get all of this cash? Or like, why is Uncle Bob buying you gifts but not the other two kids?
Right.
Those kinds of things, because that would be an example of grooming.
What is the, you talked about tattoos, talked about branding. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so tattoos can look like a name or a nickname, like, Daddy's Girl or something like that. We've seen barcodes, and I'm talking, we've seen it from Shreveport to Jackson, Mississippi, in these areas along I-20.
People are tattooing barcodes on them?
Yeah, it's gross. Oh, yeah. Gang signs or symbols that mean money signs, things like that. Just tattoos that, why would you get that? What meaning does that have to you?
Sure. So those are some of the red flags. You talked about social media. Tell us what to look for on that.
So social media can be used for great things, marketing, and, people post content to promote their businesses. And I mean, this could be an example of social media being used for good. But especially since COVID, trafficking has increased exponentially on social media. Like, We're talking 125% increase of human trafficking on Facebook since
Wow.
2020. And I think it was 95% increase on Instagram. And those are two widely used social media platforms.
Mm.
But people will get on there and will start a conversation with kids or adults and, eventually have an exchange of like, well, come meet me, let's go on a date, or, oh, you're mad at your parents and you want to run away anyways? Great, come live with me.
What are some of the other warning signs of the red flags that we
Yeah.
can, as parents, look for?
Let's see. I have running away. So one thing is that runaways are not always bad behaviors. Running away may be that they're running to someone or running away from something. Having more than one cell phone. If you ever find another hidden cell phone, or what they call a trap phone, right? So just like a little throwaway phone.
Right.
Being explicit online. Being hypersexual or sexually active, that's just more than you would expect for a teenager. And I mean, teenagers these days are more sexually active, but you can always tell a little bit more of a difference between those kinds of things. New or fancy material objects that are unexplained. We talked about older boyfriends,
Right.
missing school or being truant a lot, not being in school. So we've had some referrals where a grandfather was like, my granddaughter hasn't been in school. I know it says she's in an online school, but she's not. Those kinds of things. Changes in behaviors and moods is another one.
So we see, and just because we have one red flag, red flag doesn't mean that
Right.
it is that.
Absolutely.
But that is a warning sign for a
Yeah.
parent to look for. What advice would you give to a parent that is starting to see some of this stuff? I can remember when I was a teenager and I was defiant, parents would ask me questions, and
Yeah.
my answer was always, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know. And the parent can't get out of the kid what they would like to notice so that they can try to solve the problem.
Right.
What would you tell that parent when they have that teenager? They're seeing some of the red flags. They don't know what to do, but they need help. They need the right help. What advice would you give those parents?
Have a good relationship with your child. Start early, have open communication. My son is almost 2, and I always want him to be able to say, hey, I made a mistake.
Right.
So that's something that I work on even right now. So starting early of him telling me anything.
Yeah.
And us being able to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, because it's really hard if you have not raised your kids, and that doesn't mean that you need to be their friends.
Right. No. Right.
Because I think that's actually the opposite, because, I think they'll keep more from you even when they hit that if they feel like you're a friend instead of a parent. But I agree with you, starting early and letting them know that it's okay to have discussion with me. We're not going to always agree.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't care if you did something wrong. You won't get as big a trouble if you come to me about it and I'll find out on my own. So I think I do agree that's really important. But if they get to that point to where we're past it and we're seeing these red flags,
right.
What are some appropriate steps parents should take?
You mentioned earlier not being a helicopter parent, but I think being in your kid's business is necessary, especially in the world that we live in. And also therapy is always a good option. Kids don't always want to talk to their parents and tell them things out of shame, but building a relationship with a therapist, knowing that therapist cannot divulge your information unless you're being harmed or you're harming someone, you might be more open to being like, I'm in a relationship that I'm not so sure I want to be in anymore.
So from a therapy standpoint, if a family decides that this is where we need to take our kid, and you can't divulge what you're talking with the kid about, how can you coach the parents down a productive path, knowing that you know what's going on, but you can't necessarily tell them everything? If there was something safety related, I'm sure you would have to.
Absolutely right.
Or criminal, you'd have to let people know. But what comfort or reassurance can you give to the parents that are in that situation that you can help guide them through it?
So in my practice, I can't speak for Jennifer, my co-founder, but for me, I like to tell the teens that I work with, maybe there's a good time to bring your parents in so that we can talk about this. Now, we have a good therapeutic relationship. I know that you may feel embarrassed, but we're at a point now where like your parents need to be involved. And it typically goes well, where even if they're worried about what their parents may say, like having a mediator there just helps them to be like, this is what's going on.
So is that something where you can help coach the parents through without divulging everything, but actually coach them through that? Look, here's some steps I think are going to be productive for the family
Oh, yeah.
to be able to take. They may not be able to know every detail, but you can help center them on the right path.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's been times where you can call a parent and be like, hey, I just want y'all to have like a family night, like they need your attention, they need your presence, or it could be anything where you just kind of let the parent know like, hey, this kid is going to need some one-on-one time, or just they want to talk to you, but they don't know how.
You get to see probably a lot more of the scary stuff than what the average parent will see when it comes to what kids are dealing with on social media. Um, how bad is it? Well, let me rephrase the question. We would like to be the parents that prevent our kids from having a phone until they're at least in high school.
Amen.
We would like to be that way.
Right.
I can't sit here and tell you today that I won't get bent at some point, because I know it's going to be hard. I know the peer pressure that will exist. In my first graders class, I mean, there's kids in there with cell phones already, and they wonder why they can't have it. And we're talking early with them about it. But what would be some of the reasons that you would want to encourage parents? And you may not encourage, but I would like to think that you might encourage parents to wait to give the kid a cell phone.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely stand behind like waiting. And again, I think it goes back to the social media and all the dangers, like there's just so many apps where you can be secretive, you can hide photos, you
Right.
can message people. Discord. I mean, kids get
Mhm.
on Discord and try to have games and things. And I mean, there was a kid that I worked with who's was tricked by an adult that he thought was a teenage girl his age. He was talked into sending nude pictures, and they were sold. He
Hmm.
was trafficked via social media.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that that's a part of trafficking. It doesn't have to be a physical act. It
Right.
can be, and how much of that stuff is going on in our community we have no idea about.
Right.
Wow. So from advance from the kid standpoint into adults, it's not just kids.
Yeah.
It is adults. And I can't remember the stat that I looked at today, but um, in Louisiana, I believe, and I'm going to be off a little bit on numbers, so y'all don't go too bad on me in the comment
Right.
section.
Yeah.
But I believe in 2002, there was reported in Louisiana 920 some odd reported cases in Louisiana for human trafficking. Um, I would have to assume there's so much more that's unreported than is reported,
Sure.
because these traffickers, they shame their people into thinking that they are nothing and that nobody's going to ever believe them. So I can imagine it's very difficult for them to come forward. But talk to us a little bit about on the adult side of
Sure.
it. I'd preface before we started that when you start talking about a subject, you start seeing the signs of that subject around you. And I noticed that
Yeah.
I had went into a gas station restroom recently. No, it was actually a restaurant. It was a restaurant bathroom, and on the hand towels there was something about if you're being affected by human trafficking, here's a number you can
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about what that aspect of it is for
Sure.
the adults and what we see.
And I'll say this to begin with. My husband often reminds me that you live in a bubble where you see human trafficking every day.
Yeah.
The world is bigger than your bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is there, and we need to be aware, but being hyper vigilant isn't necessary.
Agreed, but equipping people like myself
Yeah.
to know what to look for,
Right.
so that if we see something, we can say something, because
Right. Yeah.
as a believer in Christ, I'm called to be there for the least of these, to make
Yeah.
sure that the children, the widows, the people who can't defend themselves,
Yeah.
that we should also be their voice.
Absolutely.
So give us some tips on things we should look for, or
Yeah.
some stats in that area.
So I was going to say about the adults, there's always a statistic out there, and I don't ever remember it, so I looked it up, where it says on worldschildren.org, 27% of victims are children. So that means that, what's 100 minus 27? 73?
Yeah, close enough.
Right. And there was another one on stopthetraffic.org, 25% are 8 or younger than 18. Well, then that means 75% are adults because we're talking about a group of victims or a group of survivors. We like to say survivors because, we don't want to stay in the victim mindset.
Sure.
But yeah, so that means 75% are adults. So if we have 100, 75 victims of human trafficking are adults. And that blows people's minds because they're like, adults, how are you being manipulated? Because they seek out vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
They seek out weaknesses or what they view as weaknesses, whether it be substance abuse, poverty, what have you, and they use that against you. Like, well, I can help you pay your bills, or I can make trades for substances.
And it doesn't always start off as what it is. It starts off with hey, I'm here to help you.
Oh, yes.
I'm here to take care of you. And then it eventually evolves into,
right.
You can be my girlfriend and we're going to have a great
Right.
life together.
Right.
And that leads into, hey, I need you to.
Yeah, I saved you from your family, or I helped you with your addiction. Now you owe me.
You owe me. What are some warning signs that we can look for just out in the public? Not to say I expect someone to go and just like take action in this one in this one case, but it could be just a simple conversation with someone. Hey, do you need help? Or, hey, I think I may need to call the police and just let them take a look at this.
Yeah.
What are some of those warning signs that we could look for?
So kind of like the red flags with kids, it's the like, running away, or maybe they're very untrusting of people if we're talking about adults, untrusting of law enforcement, which, that could be a range of different things,
Sure.
but that's one red flag. The tattoos, things like that, specifically like in New Orleans or Shreveport, working in a club, working in a strip club. A lot of times they're being trafficked.
Not necessarily by the strip club, but by people making them work in that place and the things that they may do after hours.
Right.
What is trafficking? Let's kind of break that down, because we talked about it a little bit with the kids, and it doesn't have to be that kid is physically violated. A kid could be talked in, and that's happening more and more that I'm hearing. Kids are talked into sending photographs,
Right.
And they will sell the photographs, or they will blackmail that kid with the photographs to do other things, whether it be get money or actually take physical action.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about what trafficking is, so that everybody kind of understands what we're physically talking about here. It's not just, like you said earlier, it's not the Taken scene to where somebody's going to get kidnapped and we're taking you across and you're going to do all these things.
Right. Okay. So the definition of human trafficking is recruiting, obtaining, or transporting victims for sexual exploitation or forced labor using force, fraud, or coercion. Now, if you're 18 or younger, you don't have to prove force, fraud, or coercion.
Right.
I can't say it.
Coercion.
There we go. Yeah.
So from the kid's standpoint, we talked about its photographs. It's physical acts. But getting that kid connected with a trafficker, you talked about familia. There was a word you used for that.
Familial, yeah.
So that's a family member that's taking advantage of kids.
Right. Or a friend of the family. That's also considered familial trafficking, where it's a known person in your life that is blood related or in the vicinity of your family.
What are some of the things that you see here locally that we need to be hyper vigilant towards with our kids?
As far as familial trafficking?
Anything at all with our kids. Trafficking of our kids. What are some of the common things that you're seeing today right now? Because I'm sure what's happening today can morph into something tomorrow, but what do we need to be looking for today?
Tattoo shops, substance abuse, running away, just odd behaviors where your moods are changing drastically. You're very depressed, you're very tired, things like that. And the gifts, the money.
So is the gifts that big of a deal to where?
It really is. Yeah. I mean, I'll buy you an Xbox, and now you can't tell your dad that I'm hurting you because I got you these gifts. Or if you tell your dad that I'm hurting you, or you tell your mom that I'm hurting you, they're not going to believe you because I'm your uncle, I'm your aunt, I'm what have you.
I mean, doubtful that a kid's going to be watching this, but in the event that there is, or not just kids, anyone that's listening to this, if they find themselves in the situation and they feel helpless,
Mm-hmm.
they're not trusting of law enforcement.
Right.
What have you found to be some um, safe or less threatening ways that people can seek help
Yeah.
and are made to feel like help is coming
Yeah.
when they reach out?
Tell a trusted adult or a trusted friend that you know will tell an adult. So if you're a teenager or if you're an adolescent and you tell your best friend and you know that your best friend is going to tell their mom, or go to the school counselor, tell your favorite teacher, tell someone that you feel like isn't going to judge you, and tell your youth leader. You know, they're a youth leader may not be a mandated reporter, they might be, I don't know, but they're going to do something about it, you know, and they are likely going to make a plan with you, you know.
How equipped are our schools to recognize when trafficking is occurring?
So schools don't typically let people in to talk about trafficking unless there is a training, 143, love 143, and that's a great training. But to let any nonprofit or any therapist in, you have to get permission slips, and that's very hard. So it's easier to do at private schools, but it's difficult to get into the schools, unfortunately.
Just to give training to the teachers?
Well, that would be different. But for the kids, it's harder. But for the teachers, it would just be a matter of asking the faculty, like, hey, can we come in? Can we talk to your teachers about this? And there's actually a nonprofit in Ruston that is allowed to go into the schools, not to discuss specifically human trafficking, but to go in and to talk to girls about self-esteem and
Okay.
hygiene and, you know, sexuality, things like that.
But I would assume that at that point, they can slip in somewhere that, if you're, asked to do these things, it's not.
It's not safe. It's not good.
Safe. It's
Sure.
not good.
We hope that's
So
what's happening.
are our educators in Louisiana, are they required to report anything like that?
I believe teachers are mandated reporters. I'm pretty sure.
What would you like to see change within our system to help make, I don't think, ever since the bite of the that fruit in Garden of Eden where sin came to life, we're not going to rid this world of that, but we sure can knock a dent in it.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some things that you feel like as a community we need to do a better job of?
Advocating for law enforcement to get necessary training. Right now, they're only required to have like 3 hours of training online. They can literally just play it and let it go. They don't have to sit there and watch it. I'm not saying that that's what they do, but that's what they can do.
Back up for a minute.
Yeah.
So, and we're not speaking of any certain agency because I don't know what their policies are.
Yeah.
But the agencies in Northeast Louisiana, you feel like they need additional training?
In the state of Louisiana. Yes, specific training, especially if you have a task force dedicated to human trafficking. We need training so that you can know that this 16-year-old who's smoking weed and running away from her mom every night isn't just being defiant. There's something else going on. They're running to something or running from something.
So you're saying that in some cases, not all, but in some cases, they're not asking the right questions.
Right.
They're not trying to find out the root cause of what's happening. Right. They're just addressing that one issue.
Right. Exactly.
How much do you think could be resolved faster if they did start asking better questions or looking down a different path?
Right. Or even including an advocate to go with you if you're going to talk to a 16-year-old girl, things like that. I think that it would lead to more investigations and it would lead to more prosecutions.
So what would that advocate look like? Tell me about that. Do you have any experience in that area, or are there other agencies that you're aware of that offer something like that?
Yes. So there's a new law, and don't let me lie to you, I don't know, 662 maybe? I work with the CAC. I should know this, but I don't know the numbers.
It's okay.
So they have different regional advocates, and it's grant funded. It's beautiful. It's free. We love that. And so they have advocates around the state. BCFS is the name
So
of the company.
so there's money out there at the state level, or is it a federal level?
Maybe, I don't know. One
So,
of the
but
two.
there's a grant that's
Yeah.
available to be able to have advocates locally
Mhm.
that can assist law enforcement.
Or can assist any survivor that's 18 or younger.
Okay.
Or maybe it's 21 younger. Yeah.
So that service is available, and we would like to hope that all agencies are using it to the fullest.
Yes, yes. And it's brand new.
Okay.
Just started in 2023. So
Okay. So would it be appropriate for us to start asking our local agencies if they utilize this service?
definitely, because they're trying to partner through the CAC with different law enforcement agencies that have specific task force or, certain officers that work these kinds of cases.
Okay.
So that would be super awesome.
Definitely some questions that I'll need to ask. What other advice can you give our community about us doing a better job of being more vigilant in this area?
Sure. It really is real. It really does happen. It really is right around here. And just knowing that. So if you just see something that's odd, out of the way, then, make a note of it. Or you can make a confidential report to the hotline. There's a national hotline. There's also the state police hotline.
So what does that confidential report look like?
Where you just call in and like, hey, I'm at Walmart on 18th, and I saw this girl with her head down walking with, she looked like a teenager. She was walking with probably a young adult male. And I just noticed it was very suspicious, And so from there, they can make a report to law enforcement who, at the very least, can go to Walmart and either find them or look at the cameras and see what was going on.
So within and you may not know the answer to this, and I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot with it, but within DCFS, Louisiana Department of Children's Services and Families Services, whatever that acronym is, I know that they, at least in Northeast Louisiana, they are overburdened, beyond overburdened, and I'm sure there's multitude of reasons for that. I feel like kids are getting overlooked or not necessarily getting the adequate care that they need because the burden is so great. Agencies like yourself, do y'all have any influence or have the ability to work with kids that are picked up by the state that may be affected with this?
Definitely. A lot of my clients are DCFS or foster care, with a foster family. So definitely. I was just asked to be on a what do they call it? I don't know, like a case management call to talk about one of our mutual clients where they got a report about human trafficking. Well, I'm seeing this kid for therapy, or I have in the past, and we kind of compare and contrast.
I know that, and I don't want to get political over our immigration, but some of my research has talked about that a large portion of the people that are crossing our southern border are just basically being sold into the trafficking realm.
Right.
Do we see any of that coming through Louisiana?
Definitely. There are some ongoing cases right now. Excuse me. And I had a case in Farmville, Louisiana, from Guatemala.
It's just horrible. Anything else you would like for us to know about your company and how to reach out to them and what you really specialize in?
Sure. Our biggest service is therapy. Jennifer and I are both therapists. Now, we have different services like financial literacy, where, it can be as basic as how to write a check all the way up to we can help you learn how to do your taxes. So there's a big spectrum of financial literacy
But I think that's
information.
really good because I would say most of the clients that you're dealing with in this realm, they need to be equipped to be able to get on their feet and be able to manage their money. I mean, we can give somebody a job, but if they spend their paycheck the day they get it, they haven't achieved anything. So I think that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as the services that you guys offer, I know that you have a nonprofit, so I'd have to assume on some level, if someone can't afford some of the services that you guys do offer some of that, but do you take insurance as well.
Right,
So
right.
you can work
So
with
we
pretty much
take-
all the major providers.
Yes, we work with many of the major providers as well as we accept Medicaid. We're one of the providers in Louisiana who actually accept Medicaid because
And I think that's
a big
difficult
deal.
to really define in this
Oh, yeah,
area is
for
finding
sure.
a therapist that accepts Medicaid. That's great
Mhm.
to know.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add?
You asked about our nonprofit. Our website is just thedragonflyharbor.org, where you can find services, you can find our therapist, our board members, so you can kind of see who we are, what we do.
And
on
y'all
our
are very
website.
active on Facebook as well. It kind
Mhm.
of tells about things or events that you guys have
Right,
going on. So Dragonfly Harbor on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you did a fundraiser that we wanted to attend at
Yeah.
Candy Cane Lane.
Yes.
I told my wife in the beginning, I said, I ain't doing no run on Candy. You know how hilly that thing is? She says, no. It was a walk. I said,
Yeah.
I could have
A leisurely walk. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking running through Candy Cane Lane
Yeah.
and the Christmas lights for some might sound fun. For me, it wouldn't be fun at all.
Right. Yeah.
Well, look, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for the dedication that you give our community and the obedience to be able to follow God on where He had a
Absolutely.
place already built out for you guys. All the information that people need to have is going to be on your website.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure that we put a link below.
Awesome.
If there is anything that we can do to help support, if you guys are trying to raise funds, please reach out to us. We're going to
Sure.
help promote anything for you. I think what you guys are doing is great.
Thank you.
I think it's a topic that we don't talk enough about because it
Definitely.
is a little taboo. Nobody wants to think about trafficking happening in our backyard. And I just want to point out one more time that it's just not females we need to think about. It's not
Right.
little
right.
girls. We're having the same thing that are happening, not at the level with our young boys, but it's happening with them too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's things we just don't like to talk about, but it's real. It's here.
Mm-hmm.
More focus we can put on it, the better we have a chance to recognize it and put a stop to some of it, or as much as we can. So thank you for yours and Jennifer's dedication down this path. And if there's anything we can do to help you down the road, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Sure. And thank you for this opportunity to spread some awareness.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to this podcast. We really appreciate your involvement. Please leave us a comment, or even better yet, subscribe to this podcast and hit that notification bell so that you can be alerted for every new episode when it hits.